So welcome to our second Prod MBA product leadership series. This time we're talking everything customer insight. And today I'm speaking to James Ojo, product manager, no code maker, and also part of our Prod MBA mentorship team. How's it going, James?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. You can probably hear my dog barking in the background, but not much I can do about it now. Anyway, sorry, I think we froze for a second. So I thought an interesting question to start. Right? Customer insight, something we, like everyone reads a lot about, you hear a lot about it. And there's a lot of cliche, posts on Medium about like, listen to the customer, all of this stuff. Yet very few people actually do it. Very few people know how to leverage customer insight, not just for like an individual feature, but vision, strategy, roadmap. How and when did you come to realize the importance of customer insight?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That would definitely be when I was doing PM role activities at Condeco, and essentially what we'd been doing before that was just building what our boss's boss wanted, and just trying to figure out why we weren't getting the results we were doing. And I think even it's quite hilarious because even though I was doing what my boss's boss wanted me to build, when we didn't get the results or when we didn't achieve the goals that the business wanted, I had to answer these questions as to why we didn't achieve it. And as you can imagine, saying,
what were your answers?
well, obviously, this is where being slick is quite cool, but obviously I didn't want to say stuff like, well, we built what you wanted us to build, Bill.
Yeah.
So I kind of just said, do you know what? We're going to bring some objectivity back into this, and that they should leave it with me. So essentially, because we had the user invoice tool that we'd already set up, I now started to synthesize it. So that was my first real experience of knowing the difference between speaking to customers and actually listening to customers, because it's two different things. And yeah, that's where we really started to get that engagement, and we could collaborate with marketing to say, you asked for this feature, we built, you asked for this, we understood your needs and we built this, and that helps us tell a really good story as well.
How did you realize, was there a moment, or is it just, you're sort of building stuff and you're just seeing that people aren't using it and seeing that you're not making money from it?
Yeah, I think the quickest way to really realize is one of two things. And one is obviously your boss's boss asking you why the company hasn't hit the results, but probably a much better way that will help you understand that sooner is if you track the metrics that you set in the beginning. So it's one thing building a business case for it, and a lot of people do it. We as PMs do it. Senior business people do it. Senior stakeholders do it as well. People in the leadership team. But it's another thing saying, okay, what did we ship, and let's go back and look at those numbers that we pitched in the beginning, which is what I do now.
Yeah, really good point. I mean, on that as well, data analytics is it's a big topic, right? And it's a difficult one because there's a lot of malpractice. It's a lot more complex actually than many people seem. However, it is an easy win, right? To go, if you're saying, right, I'm stuck in a feature factory, I'm building stuff that doesn't really make sense. That you can bring some basic but clear data to the table. If you have different different pages within an application, like you can on a basic level track, okay, well, how many people are getting to each page? That's one tiny little like code snippet. That's nothing difficult to build, and something you can sneak into a feature being built. So let's come back to actually, because I think this is a really big topic of like, how did you get buy-in beyond just saying like, leave it with me?
Yeah, so I'd probably say it was just having a really good plan. And in the beginning, I think every PM has had this where it's like, this is pretty simple, guys. Like, you don't need to go through all of that discovery. Just, just basically ship it. And I think until I started to really empathize and just like
Yeah.
take into consideration the stakeholders that, you know, what their benefit statement, what they're trying to achieve. I used to be quite defensive about that, and that's just me being really honest. But what I actually found, and you know, there's this great kind of thought around, you know, assumption mapping and the different ways to kind of like get certainty in an uncertain
Yeah.
area is, you know, one quite reasonable way to learn about your customers is just to ship it and learn. You know, you can build the smallest end-to-end, you can build the smallest thing and just learn that way. You don't actually necessarily need to go through discovery. So I think this speaks to the real job of, you know, people who are in those positions as PMs, which is, it's not our job to tell stakeholders, oh, your idea didn't work, or this
Yeah.
proposed way of doing things didn't work. It's about collaborating with them, really, you know, meeting them where they are and thinking about their needs, but coming up with multiple solutions. So, you know, so there's room for flexibility and to say, well, you know, within this period, we can try a few things, and, you know, we can consider the risk and reward, or the time spent and reward of different approaches. And that brings more objectivity and room to kind of to achieve our goals.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that. It's not something I thought about much, but you know, I speak to a lot of product managers and a lot of product owners, and a lot of the complaints are like, you know, how do I show my boss that they're wrong? Right? So how do I quickly get data to you know, show them, hey, this idea isn't working? But also on the other side, it's yeah, it is also a thing of there's this nice concept of extreme ownership by I don't know, you heard Jocko Willett, that like crazy.
I'm writing it down as we speak.
Anyway, it's a really good, he's a bit nuts, but the principle is very good, which is ultimately like, you need to take responsibility of anything that comes across your desk, even if it's not your fault. It's something that I live by. I think it's just a good principle to have. You know, it's ultimately, yes, it is your responsibility to push back and tell it, no, that doesn't make sense. But also you need to come to the table with a plan, like with some evidence, with good ideas as well. I think a lot of the time, you know, leaders step in because they're not seeing that initiative. They're not seeing that leadership from the, you know, the more junior person as well. So it's definitely a two-way, you know, it's a two-way relationship as always.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think, you know, I'm really grateful for a lot of the people along the way that I can say I read their content or kind of spoke to me in terms of this mindset and this ethos. And I've seen it with other people that I've worked with. But, you know, essentially being, you know, there's this concept of being a T-shaped PM, and it's why I think product managers are generalists so much as well, because essentially we're problem solvers. We spend a lot of time in the problem space. We spend a lot of time you know, pleading with people not to solutionize and come to us. You know, we want to know your problems. So essentially we are problem solvers. And it's about, you know, how can we do that with the right level of fidelity, with the right level of speed and direction, so that people trust us, you know, and we need to make them look good as well, these stakeholders as well. So yeah, it's a tricky balance, but, you know, that's why these days I spend a lot of time thinking about companies that are designed for success now, like building a successful startup board, and, you know, the kind of like leadership that's in the team, because it is a domino effect and it trickles down.
Yeah. Let's talk about that actually, in terms of like specific tactics you employ to like be more customer centric. Right? You mentioned sort of, you know, ship and learn is, as with, you know, you can read Lean Startup, get the idea of an MVP and sort of run with that. But in the reality of many organizations, you've got limited autonomy or limited wiggle room, right, to try things out. So what would you suggest to somebody that says, okay, well, you know, great, I get what, you know, Marty Kagan's saying, I get what Eric Ries is saying, Lean Startup, but I can't do that myself. Like, how do you, you know, concept I talk about a lot is like 20% time. So it's like, how can you carve out 20% to squeeze in these extra things? Do you have any specific tactics there?
So for me personally, I've always said to myself personally that if I'm in a new company, or even, if I'm working with different, more established functions, I don't necessarily, and I'm not the founder of the business, or I wasn't part of the starting five or starting 10, then, my, people care less about my opinions, because, they might assume that I don't know enough, or I'm not right. And I think that's a good, honest, and, I think good true PMs always start from that place anyway, where they're like, you know, I've got a hypothesis to, invalidate or validate, just that acceptance that I might be wrong. And I think that is what makes us really good PMs is, I need to, I can give you a confidence level, but it's going to be it's not going to be specific numbers, within a specific range and a specific confidence level. So for me, I just kind of like was able to identify quite early that the strongest thing I can do, and to have kind of a certain level of influence, is to bring objectivity back into the process. So for example, where I'm at now at So Energy, one of the first things that I did was, I knew that I was the new guy and it was my first 30 days. And, um, as much as it's nice to hear that, oh, you're going to have autonomy, you're going to get empowered, in a way, my first sprint was kind of already set for me.
Yeah.
So I said, guys, I'm building relationships. I'm starting to understand who's who, and I've got a plan anyway for, that's going to take us quarter to quarter. And do you know what? I am going to ship what you want, on the condition that you're going to let me put tracking in place. So I had to advocate for that and kind of push back a bit. And it did mean that the sprint was a little bit delayed, but I wanted to be able to say on the back of, in week 5, well, guys, we tried it your way. These are the results. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, smart.
Oh, do you want to improve on that? Okay, let's, and I think that was a good starting point. And I think, people in those kind of strategic positions, or those kind of positions, I think that is where I came from.
Mm-hmm. I think that is such a good point, because, coming back to the start, as with everything in life, like, you don't learn things by just reading about them. Even if someone trusted says, like, you need to be listening to your customer, like, you cannot have a non-customer centric strategy. Like, they're still going to go and do their own thing anyway. And I think, really smart. She's like, how can you prove as quickly as possible that this is just not working? Right? Whatever's happening, it's not working. And actually, it's a really smart move of you to not pollute what was there already, right? To say, look, this is your thing, right? None of my ideas yet. You can't hide then. You can't say, the classic example you gave at the beginning, when it's your boss's boss, it's very easy for them to hide behind excuses, right? It's, well, just James screwed up, or they didn't actually deliver what I wanted. But if you go, okay, is this exactly what you want? Are you sure? Let me just add some tracking. You show the cold hard facts, and it's very difficult to dodge that. At least you're going to open up for a conversation around, okay, like, what could we do differently there, which helps you move towards more customer centric.
That is exactly it. Yeah, you said it back to me better than I said it.
No, but I think really, really nice example, actually. Good tactic there. So one specific tactic is, like, show the lack of results, right, in an objective way as quickly as possible. Talk me through, like, what is that next step for you? So you said, coming into a new role, for example, like, how do you try and quickly show, hey, look, here's why why speaking to customers, testing with customers makes sense?
Yeah. So again, I've got another example in my current role as well. I think it's just hard for people not to do it, because I had a situation where, I was working with a stakeholder who we'd gone through the cycle. So we're working together day in, day out, trying to contribute to the success of a particular new business unit that we're building. So they understand the way I work. They've seen kind of like, they're starting to, they've heard of discovery. They don't quite understand it, but they see we do these things. And even when we went on the next business unit that we're trying to build out, the same things happened again. It's, yeah, we've got this limited time to get things out the door, and yeah, I've been in this space for a long time and blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
I think um in regards to that particular one, in terms of like how we were able to kind of just show like influence, or just to kind of get that buy-in again, it's essentially just the same thing. I think it's about making sure people feel heard, like everyone feels represented, because we don't have any influence or authority over anyone, but essentially the people that we're working with do want to feel like they've contributed. And it's, I think, and I talk about this a lot, but I think it's about understanding everyone's incentives. I always think incentives drive behavior. So the commercial director might be thinking about, proving very quickly to the business that this is viable, because this commercial director has got targets to hit. And, maybe the CFO is thinking about, when's this unit going to be profitable, or do we need to go out and raise more funding, because, it's a completely different business unit. And the engineering manager might be thinking like, yeah, we can get this out the door quickly, but we're going to be stuck maintaining it once it goes live. So people don't even factor in the cost of maintaining things when you're building them. So
yeah, very true. Very true. Actually, I mean, it's a really interesting topic, because it's, also it's tied to ego, right? I think people find it, well, there's two things there. I think first, it's really difficult for people that haven't experienced product and iterations, right, and going through these cycles, to really accept, like, we don't know what we're doing, and the only, like, we can have maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 10, like, good ideas, but we really don't know what we're doing. We just need to see where customers lead it. And it's a very different mindset. It's very difficult for the ego to accept, we're idiots. Like, we can't predict a thing in a world where we try and predict everything. And I think second thing, as you said, it's that, people have the domains that they are worried about, rightly, right? They need to protect job security. They're worried about the, long-term interest of the company as well. So there as well, simply just saying like, yeah, I'm listening, I am listening to you, does help. On that, is there any specific, like, how do you do that specifically? Do you just sort of have this mapped out in your head? Do you write it down?
Yeah, so even so a really good example on the customer side, because it's and kind of like learnings from customers, but and this is kind of similar to the tracking one, because when I introduced the lean canvas and what are the business assumptions, I collaborated with the commercial stakeholder on that very things. And I said from the beginning that I want to create this shared understanding amongst everyone. So even though I'm having one-to-one conversations with the commercial director, it's I'm documenting, we're working on this collaborative Google Docs document. Are you happy with it? Yes. Right. This is what's getting shown to the engineering team and to the CEO. Like, it's that level of, and I've seen like the nervousness a little bit as well, because this is when you start to remind people that nobody knows for sure, because it's one thing communicating with each other and saying, yeah, this is gonna increase revenue by 10%, 20%. Are you sure about that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that down on here as what you've said. And I think it's painful and it's tough and it's really uncomfortable, but these are the things that really drive the decisions. I can imagine if I'm not in the room and that commercial director is speaking to the CEO, they're more pitching because they need to get funding and backing for their ideas. So one of the things that I did with that stakeholder is I'd had this page document of like, these are the assumptions, and I started to invite and record all these sessions. And he said, yeah, I can't make everyone. He probably came to 2 out of 10 or listened to 2 out of 10. But then, they're starting to hear from real life customers, what is happening. So it was really good to just get that buy-in. And, over time, you start to build that trust when they hear it from other people, from the people that they want to sell.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good place to finish and really interesting. It's a really good real world approach, right? Because as I said, I think it's a waste of everyone's time to like, here's how to do a customer interview without actually doing it. It's a waste of time understanding the value of customer interview without actually doing it. And you've just mapped out actually a really nice framework for actually getting your company to be more customer centric in practice. You talked to us initially about this, how can you quickly just show like, hey, this isn't working? So embedding some analytics in your first sprint, for example, or sneaking them in the next sprint, just some basic analytics, as you said. I think secondly, when you have that, open, honest conversation about showing that, hey, this isn't working, it's about then, getting stakeholders in the room and just sort of trying to get them to buy into the process. I suppose third step is then how do you show some results quickly and show, hey, look, here's the value of actually speaking, whilst also, always having that balance and then saying it's as much about being customer centric as keeping stakeholders involved, like showing them that you respect them, showing that you're listening to them, etc. Yeah, really, really interesting chat actually. And actually I've picked up a few little tactics myself. So thanks so much, James, for being part of the product leadership series. Is there anywhere where you'd like people to go? I know you have weekly newsletter, right?
Yeah, so for sure, it's jyoms.com, www.jyoms.com, and you'll see my Substack as well, jyoms.substack.com. That's where I share a lot of all the kind of free content and things that are really helping non-technical founders and people that want to do these things quickly and cheaply.
Nice, awesome. Well, I'll link that through when we send out the series as well, so people can follow your work there as well. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll be speaking soon for sure.
All right, cheers, Henry.